Hey, hi. In this video, I'm going to show you how to enable Azure Windows Virtual Machine Monitoring with using Azure Monitor. As you see in this PPT depicts the demo of the video. So here what we do is we will create Azure Windows Virtual Machine as an example virtual machine. On top of that, we will enable monitoring with using Azure Monitor. So Azure Monitor is a capability in the Azure which will actually provide a full stack monitoring capabilities, right? So here what we is whenever we have completed creation of Azure virtual machine, that machine gets reported by default into the Azure Monitor. From the Azure Monitor, we will take a capability of it to dynamically enable the monitoring of that virtual machine being from here, and which will eventually help us to monitor the required metrics, right? So when you enable Azure, the monitoring of that machine from the Azure Monitor, it will actually under the hood it installs the Azure Monitor agent with using VM extensions, right? And so here Azure Monitor as of now supports only collecting the performance matrix. If you want to collect the Azure Windows event logs, in that case, we need to use a log analytics workspace, right? So in that case, the data will be going to the an Azure log analytics workspace, and from there, you can visualize or try to do a view of that particular logs in Azure Monitor with using its own capabilities. All right. So that is a basic overview about this demo. So with that note, let me take you to the my Azure portal. So this is my Azure portal. As of now, I don't have any resource group, which means that I don't have any virtual machines as well. Now what I do is I have created a PowerShell script which will actually helps us to create the virtual machines dynamically. I'm going to share this PowerShell file in the video's description. You can find it from there. Now without being delayed, let's get started. Okay, so here I'm using AZ PowerShell to spin up the virtual machines and do the configurations, right? So first one, we need to do login, in the sense login into the Azure account with using Azure PowerShell. So to do that, I have to um, I have to type a command called connect AZ account. So let me do connect AZ account first. So this is a connect AZ account. So in this we have an option called use device authentication, right? So I will say use device authentication. You see there is a parameter called use device authentication. So run this command something like this. It will take you to output which will show you, which will have a URL. Copy that URL, and that URL should be opened in the same browser where you have opened the Azure portal, because it's going to take the credentials of the this browser from the backend, right? So here it will ask you to enter the code, which is the code which we have got here. So I'm going to copy that code and put it into this code format. Click on next, follow the browser options, and finally click on the continue, which will actually complete the login into the uh, Azure context, and then from there you can start executing the command. If you directly jumping into the running these commands, you might get the context error, right? So here you can run command like get Azure AZ context, right? So if you type get AZ context, you should see the response basically. So if I go to the get AZ context, here you go, in the sense which means that you are actually in a session of the subscription called Azure Cloud Quick Labs. I have only one subscriptions, and that's the reason this is what it is getting me, right? So first one, let's get started with the commands. I don't have any much commands, right? So if I can walk you through these commands, basically first one is creating the resource group, and then we are using that resource group to spin up a virtual machines dynamically. Yeah. And down the line we also have a few commands, that is which actually enables the extensions, which creates a log analytics workspace, which creates the the data collection rules that are generally DCR, and then associating the DCR with the virtual machines. So all these commands have been given. You can try it from your side. For now, we will enable the virtual machine monitoring from the in the monitor, right? So here first one, I need to have a credentials to spin up the virtual machines, right? So I'm going to create a credentials for me. So like this. So this is my username. I'm going to create a password as well. So you need to have a minimum password of um, so minimum password of length 12 characters. So that's the reason I'm just putting it here. right? So this is my password now. I have added my password, and then we're going to create a resource group. So run the command like this, that is new AZ resource group. So you're going to see the response down the line here. Here you go. Resource group is created successfully. You can go to the portal, try to refresh it. You should see the resource group in a couple of seconds. Okay. So while it is coming, we need to wait for the resource group to okay. So let me refresh the page. Here you go. So we have a resource group, and that resource group does not has any kind of resources in it. Now we're going to use that to create our virtual machine, which we use it for enabling the monitoring. So here, what I do is I'm going to run this command. So this command is nothing but it just creates a Azure virtual machines, that is new AZVM, and it does takes the parameters like resource group name of the virtual machines, locations, blah blah, and all. So I'm going to change the name of virtual machine something like this, and then the location is, again it's a West Europe, and the rest all is virtual network configurations, security groups, and then we have a public IP address. I'm just keeping the default configuration just to spin up the virtual machines. Yeah. All right. So what I do is I'm gonna just use this command to spin up the virtual machines. Okay. So I selected the command and run the run selections button here. So basically, as you see here, it is actually creating a virtual machine with the name like standard D2S version 3, right? That is basically a default, the SKU of the virtual machine that will be used to spin up the virtual machine, right? So here you see that, the creating the Azure resource, nothing but it is creating the virtual machines. When it needs to create a virtual machines, it needs relevant resources like virtual network, a NIC, network interface, and then we need to have the basically the NSG, and the public IP address also we have mentioned here, right? That's the reason it is creates these resources in the resource group, right? You see the creation of the virtual machine is very fast. So if I can show you right now, so we have this one. You can try to type the command like get azvm, right? And just type it. So basically, you need to give the, so currently looks like, the machines are still, resources are still being created in this resource group. If I refresh it here, so here you go. So we have nearby 6 resources being created, including virtual machines as well. So if I open the virtual machines, so this is our virtual machines, which is currently in a running state, right? So right now, that's what I was trying to show you here in this command. So basically, which is fine. Basically, it is not reporting. Maybe we need to give the get azvm and get the resource group name, so it will work all right. So, but by the name, by the way, so our aim was to create a virtual machines which is required for our monitoring purpose, right? So first is have a virtual machine that would get reported to the Azure Monitor by default. So in the sense, as many number of as VM that you create in your Azure subscriptions, 1,000 subscriptions, those virtual machines will be reported in the Azure Monitor, and Azure Monitor is a global service. All right. So our machine is up and running fine now. So what I do is I'm going to open the another tab and we go to the monitor now, right? So I will duplicate this. So or here let's go to the virtual machine pane. So if you go to the virtual machines and try to select your resource group and blah blah and all, so here you go. So this is our virtual machines which is running fine. If I go to the extensions for now, so there are no extensions. So why I'm showing you this option is because Azure monitoring configurations will happen through AZ extensions, that is Azure extensions. And so for now we will go to the Azure Monitor. So I will just search for Azure Monitor here. So in the Azure Monitor, so click on the Azure Monitor, you see there is a monitor option here. So in the monitor options, as of now, you see that it has some information, that is log analytics agents used by VM Insights won't be supported by 31st August 24, right? To migrate to the VM Insights, Azure Monitor. Basically, Analytics Workspace, it's like the previous version of the agent which is used in the Azure to collect the the performance metrics, collect the logs from the virtual machines for the monitoring purpose. Now it has been migrated to Azure Monitor. In the sense, this service, that is Azure Monitor service, will have a native capability for monitoring the services, right? All right. So here our aim was to configure the the virtual machines into monitoring with using Monitor, right? So if you go here, there are plenty of options available for monitoring. So in the sense, Azure Monitor does supports insights or nothing but monitoring of 18 type of services. It includes computers, networking, storage, databases, security, integration, blah blah, and all right. So in our case now we are interested to have a monitoring of virtual machines which is default needed for managing the life cycle of a virtual machines, right? So in the virtual machines we are here. Now we will go to the overview and try to refresh the button. We should see our machines getting reported. I didn't do anything. I created a virtual machine and that machine got automatically created under not monitored options. Okay, and if you go to the performance, and right now we don't have any performance metrics been collected here. So that would be done whenever we started to spin up the virtual machine. So whenever started to spin up the configurations, or whenever we started to monitor the Azure virtual machines. Okay, so for now what we do is just enabling is very simple. So just there is a button called enable to enable the monitoring. So here again we need to click on enable as well, right? So there are two-step level configurations you need to do here. So VM Insight now supports the data collections using the Azure Monitor agent and data collection rules. All right. So here, enable the insight with using Azure Monitor, which is recommended from the Azure. So we're going to go with that. And here we need to choose the data collection rules. So data collection rules in Azure Monitor is a kind of settings or kind of configurations which will define like what is the resource, what is the the performance metrics or log metrics that you need to collect from the virtual machines, and what is the destination you need to store it basically, right? So here what happens is this rule defines that we are actually collecting the guest performance, in the sense the OS performance related metrics will be collected and it will be stored to a logic workspace called this. So this is a default logic workspace which will be created by default when I enable the monitoring. So if I go to the log analytics workspace, we don't have any log analytics workspace, but so that log analytics workspace will be created as soon as I I enable the monitoring basically, right? So if I go to the log analytics workspace, so in my subscription as of now there is no log analytics workspace. So why I'm showing you that is when I click on the configure, it will not only create a collection rules, it also creates a log analytics workspace, right? Or you can go ahead with the log analytics monitoring as well, which will actually creates a log analytics workspace, right? So for now we will go with the Azure Monitor and click on the configure, right? So what it does is it will validate and starts the deployments. Okay, so it will take some time. You see the deployment has started. So you can close this the below options, that is this is a bit confusing. So right, so you can just this is like Azure Monitor Insight onboarding, right? So if I go here, it's again shows the same format. There is something looks to be bug, I'm not sure, right? um, so this will also enable the system manager configuration. It looks like a same thing that it is coming again. But for now what I do is I will gonna stop this because the deployment is already happening, right? It will take a couple of minutes. So while it takes a couple of minutes, we're gonna just keep a watch on this one. So it should not take more than like 30 seconds, something like that. Once the the enabled, once this deployment goes green, which means that we should see a data collection rules here getting appear, and simultaneously in the parallel. Okay, so I will show you parallelly what are the things happening. In the Azure Monitor, it does creates a data collection rules, plus a log analytics workspace will also be created here. Plus along with that, we're gonna have an extension being enabled here. So if I refresh it here, you see we have a log analytics workspace agent is been installed. So currently status is unavailable because the configurations of the extension is in progress. So I will just keep a watch on this one, and I will go back to the log analytics workspace. If you see, log analytics workspace is also being created. Here you go. The log analytics workspace is also created by the by that actually. So if I open this one, so I'm going to refresh it. Currently it is in a transition state. Once the state goes in a succeed state, which means that the deployment is completed, right? So as I said, it will take only 13 minutes. So we need to wait for 13 more minutes, and it will take. So likewise, if I show you the other things, that is, I'm back in the Azure Monitor, and if I refresh it here, we should see a data collection rule is been enabled. So we see the data collection rule is also enabled, right? And the data collection rules is sitting in East US location. Okay, remember that there is a something change here. So likewise, if I enable the so if you see here, the Azure Monitor Windows agent, right, that is provisioning succeeded, in the sense now the deployment should be completed by now. Okay, so if I keep refreshing it and go back to the virtual machines, here you go, you see that deployment has succeeded. And then we go to the overview. Now the machine should be listed under monitored space instead of not monitored space. Okay, so for now we have done with the configuration. In the sense, this is very simple one. You just need to follow the the guidelines present in this UI and enable the virtual machines. Okay, so this is for now. I'm going to also make a video on automations, like how you can enable these configurations with using automations like PowerShell or ARM template. But for now, it's just to understand like what is been there and how it is being used for confirmation. Okay, so once it is monitoring is been done, we can go to the insights option that is underneath the performance, right? So here you're gonna choose the default workspace and just wait for the refresh it now maybe. So refresh it, and we need to wait a couple of minutes to see the performance being configured here, right? In the sense, performance started to appear here, right? So if I collect here, go to the aggregates charts, right, and n charts. So to have the data available here, we need to wait for as I said, we need to wait for like a couple of minutes. Okay, once what I do is I'm going to pause the video for a couple of minutes, and then once the data gets started appearing here, then I'm going to continue with it. Okay, for now what I do is I'm going to go on a pause basically. Okay, after waiting like almost like 5 minutes, what I did is I did further modifications that once the machines gets monitored, in the sense the machines is enabled for Azure Monitor, it will come here, and there is another button called enable. If you click on that, what I did is I went to that particular button and I did a edit. In the sense, in that edit, what did I do is I have created an independent rule, something like this, saying like I created like test something blah blah new rule, and in that rule I was see that get performance is already enabled. Along with that, I also enabled this map, in the sense just to detect the mapping of the virtual machine. In the sense, virtual machine is being collected to which resource and which ports are enabled, it will just create a map, in the sense in the form of a pictorial information, right? I enabled that, and I also created an independent log analytics workspace, because if you go to the log analytics workspace, my machine is sitting in West Europe, but by default, when you enable it from the Azure Monitor, it will point it to East to West, which is, I feel that it is a problem. So that's the reason I created a log analytics workspace in the West Europe. So how did I do is, I using the script. Anyways, I'm going to share the script. You can reuse it to create the log analytics workspace, to create the the data collection rules, and also mapping the rules and the rules with the machines as well. So this script I have used, in the sense I created the log analytics workspace with using this. I then created the data collection rules with using this command, and then I associated that data collection rules to virtual machines with using this. Okay, so all these configurations I did it before, and then I went to this to the Azure Monitor, and then I chosen the log analytics workspace, this other than the default one. Okay, so I click on this, and then I give my new data collection rules and clicked on a create. Okay, so eventually by doing this, it is remapping the data collection rules to the rules which I created, to the new one, right? By doing this, I noticed one more change in my Azure VM, that is, it got deployed another dependency agent, because without this dependency agents, it will not extract the data and pushes into the log analytics workspace. So that was the reason earlier, it was not able to, extract the data, right? So then it does has Azure Windows Monitor Windows agent plus dependency agent is been installed on this machine, and then only the data collection has started. Okay, so at general, in the sense, in general, we have to have a data collection rule, we have to have a log analytics workspace be mapped to that, and then we need to map that data collection rules to a virtual machines to a belongs to a region to region, in the sense, like region rule, like region of data analytics workspace has to be mapped to the like region, in the sense, whenever region, whichever the region the machine is been sitting, keep the log analytics workspace in the same region and then map it. Okay, so likewise I did, and then later I see that the performance has been started to collect, in the sense performance data is started to collect. Okay, if I go here and click on the top n chart, so in the sense I see that CPU utilization percentage is started to collect, in the sense currently the CPU utilization is at 0.35%, which is very 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 minimum. Likewise, we have other metrics is being collected, right? And you see that graph is continuing, in the sense the latest data collected is at 733, right? And that keeps on going. All right, and then if I go to the top n, in the sense it will just list out the the top n, in the sense the maximum the utilization of the particular metrics. So this is for CPU. If you switch, you can switch it for available MB, so it does shows you that the maximum the top n record of the particular metrics. Okay, so likewise, you want to see the maps, click on this machines. So click on that machines. Here is a bigger view that you can get a more detailed insights about your virtual machine. Okay, so likewise I clicked on a performance, and then it does shows that the logical disk performance report here. You can see that what is the the C drives current size, how much is used, what is the percentage, what is IOPS, every data of the particular logical disk being provided here. Likewise, for the CPU, you see that the data is keep collecting. You see that the latest data collected is at 7:38, which is very close, in the sense I have kept the interval of polling interval of 60 seconds, which is nothing but once in a minute. Once in a minute, it will extract the data and pushes into the Azure Monitor or pushes into the Log Analytics Workspace, because we have used this Log Analytics Workspace, right? And then similarly, if you go down, so there are multiple other performance metrics, that is log disk, logical disk IOPS, logical disk MBS, right? So likewise, there are so many metrics that we could use to get the insights of the virtual machines and do the required the further troubleshooting, or do the required restructuring to save the cost. Blah blah thing could be used. Okay, so that is about the performance. How did I get it? With using Azure Monitor on a Windows virtual machines. And then we have a map. So map is something very interesting, the feature in Azure Monitor, which it will tell you, like, machine is been connected to which port. It just gives you a pictorial, basically a pictorial overview of the complete virtual machine, right? So if I click on this one, so it will also show you the detailed information. You see that what are the processes running in this virtual machine. So everything data will be available here. So if I expand this to see better, right? So it shows there are 21 processes running in this virtual machines, and the processes are being listed here, right? Likewise, the it also shows the port enabled on this machines, blah blah thing, right? That you could also explore further here. That is log events. You can see that log events, like performance events. So basically, how many data, what are the log events being collected in the log analytics workspace, right? Similarly, alert, you can also configure the alerting of the monitoring. In the sense, you can also create an alert on particular incident that is happening on a virtual machines. Okay, for now I have not created any alerts. That's the reason it is showing like this. And go to the connections as well. You see the connections as well here. So this is very good, right? So basically, it does shows you the complete detail about your virtual machines. Like, this virtual machines connected on a port to one server, port number 123, right? It just shows you, like, how does this is actually been, this machine is been actually connected. Okay, so you can get this basically more clear view like this if you can open this. So let me go up, right, and just drag down. So this is like, you can play with. Basically, this is actually a nice picture that that gives overview about the configurations of the machines. Yeah, so if I keep on maximizing this is something like this. Yeah, you see there is a port 443 is enabled, port 123, port 53, port 80, and then you have a port number, this blah blah is been enabled on this machine. Okay, that is what it shows you. Similarly, in the performance, okay, so you can see that this is performance collection is a continuous process, right? It is keep on getting the data. So latest data is collected at 7:38. It just keeps on extracting the data and then pushing it here actually, right? All right, so with that note, I have shown you the things not to be shown for the enabling the Windows virtual machine monitoring with using Azure Monitor. Okay, so with that note, thank you very much for watching my videos. Kindly request, please do subscribe my channel. That would really encourage me a lot. So with that note, thank you, thanks a lot, and see you in the next video.